So hello, I'm Aansan Yeh. I have a Dutch-Chinese background, and I'm part of a team of co-creators, and we are co-creating the Infinite World game platform. Probably in the interview you will understand more what this is all about. And I'm passionate about, let's say, I'm passionate about life. And I'm sure in the rest of this interview you're gonna see and hear a lot more about that. So the new paradigm for me, first of all, for me it's about like seeding on the fundamental level. For me it's about a new kind of consciousness, or maybe it's not even a new consciousness. Maybe it's actually a consciousness that is pretty ancient, and even though I feel there is timelessness at the same time, I feel on the deepest level it's about embodying a consciousness of who we truly are. And that for me is unlimited and and divine, of course, you know, and we seem to have forgotten that. But to come back all the time to that self-remembrance, and to live that, and I know that that requires an awful lot to live in that state of being. It's really I fully acknowledge that's absolutely a warrior's path. And I mean, I have the privilege to walk that path. You know, I can imagine that so many other people who are in a paradigm of strive, survival, competition, and having to get by every single day. Do you have the bandwidth to fully operate on that level? And I feel extremely blessed to be in a space wherein, by being all of who I am and by radiating more and more of the essence of who we truly are, we already are a gift. And that is also for me the new paradigm. It's an integration of the being and the doing. So it's no longer this sense of we gotta prove our worth, we gotta prove who we are, because right now we don't mean a thing yet. We gotta also work or earn a living and earn our right to exist. And I feel that is more the narrative of the old paradigm, and somehow we've gotten, of course, programmed into believing that this is how it works, and that right now we don't have anything yet. Whereas I feel on the deepest level, yeah, I really think that we are so infinite, and to keep on staying in that belief and in that trust, and then to just be in that vibration and to inspire others through being that vibration, and at the same time to work from that place of deeper knowing inside of yourself about who you are and your being, and to act accordingly. So not to act with force so much anymore, or with from a place of fear or lack. Even though I also think part of the new paradigm is not to judge any of those emotions. Doesn't mean that you just sit back and you're like, whatever, you know. But I really feel that those emotions are just there for us to love more and to become more, to stand more into our true power.
So like a guidance system.
Yeah, that is what many people, well, at least from our team, talk about. Yeah, for me, it is a guiding system, but it's also something else. It's also, of course, life energy in and of itself. It's just vitality, sheer life force, basically. For me personally, emotions are also, they are not just the guiding systems in terms of coming back into alignment, you know. They also generate meaning and depth in life, imagine you could not feel. And I've been in that place. I've been in a place where I was numb and I was so cut off and unable to really feel any emotions. But then you might just as well not exist, you know, because emotions is, it's like when you allow it to flow, um, insights come to you, life flows through you, and life gains meaning and depth. And wisdom is often born in the shadows, right? So I feel they are here to, well, to bring about an era of of power and of love and of wisdom. And of course, not by dissing them at all, you know, but by honoring that we are sentient beings and that we are conscious beings, and that that is something very unique, that we are self-aware, that we are self-reflective, that we can make choices consciously, and that is a absolutely unique capacity. And the new paradigm for me is also about, and I've been there too, moving from just feeling like a victim, you know, life is happening to me, or I'm in so much pain, why was this relationship like this and this and this, but my parents did this and this and this, you know, the stories basically. And I feel the new paradigm is also about us understanding that we are creators of our own reality, which in the end is a fiction. It's we are the interpreters, right? We are the artists and the storytellers, and that is an amazing capacity that we have, but it's also our greatest handicap, because we might get stuck and bogged down into a narrative that no longer serves us. And I feel it's about unwinding all of the untruths that are locked in that narrative. And so now I'm really talking about like the personal level in terms of the new paradigm. I think it's also related, of course, to understanding what love really is. And this maybe sounds very fluffy always, you know, oh, what is love? But it's, I think we in this paradigm, we have gotten so used to conditional love, and that we only are worthy of love and care and nourishment if we do things that are useful, or that other people are approve of, or that are validated in society, and it's all external. And I really feel like this new paradigm is also about a deeper understanding of what it means to unconditionally love ourselves without without being enabling towards ourselves, right? So what does it mean to have compassion for yourself, to be kind towards yourself, and at the same time discern what is empowering for you and what isn't, and to make consequent choices out of that, and to keep on seeing that whoever hurt you in your life, and that is still very much a practice for me, and I'm not there yet, I feel, but that comes from a place of unresolved pain inside of them, which is only a reflection of unresolved pain inside of you. And to be thankful for that, it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. And yeah, but that is actually one of my passions, and it has always been one of my passions, but I also see where it comes from. It's like one of my passions was always to bring down like love and wisdom, and to bring that down on earth, and care and empathy. And later on I realized, oh, the only reason why I so have an ache to bring that down, to embody all of that in this form, I realized later on that it is because, in a way, as a child, I feel, even though I fully come into a more wholesome relationship with my parents, yeah, I feel that I sort of didn't fully receive that on an emotional level. And of course, as a child, I shut down. So I closed myself off, and I started to become very aloof and distant, and underneath it was a lot of anger and resentment. So I see that pattern, that usually our greatest kind of challenges in life are our greatest gifts. So I now see, oh, the reason why I so ache to bring that forth in the world is because I felt that I didn't have that as a kid. And but I also see the gift in it now, and I'm thankful for it. You know, I'm like, thank you, even my parents, because I'm like, oh, that I was born with that gift, and I want to learn and understand what that means without without the kind of stereotypical image of love just means to accept everything and to be okay with whatever happens, you know? That for me is just too. There is more to it, and I'm on an exploration. Yeah, there is maybe one more thing that is personally for me the new paradigm. I've already, but that would be for me life as art. That's just my. um, yeah, and I think what I mean with that is a form of. And I always talk about these things. I noticed that. I always talk about self expression and authenticity. But I feel that life as art is seeing that it's a canvas. You know, you've got a canvas and it's completely open. And when you're not bogged down by fears or by, because I used to be, you know, a lot. I can, fears, contractions, internalized expectations. But when I liberated myself from it through actual healing, yeah, what can come out is the artist, you know, and the artist. It's not just so limited to, oh, do I make paintings or not, or do I produce any music. It's more like a way of living and a way of seeing the world. That it's all interpretation, it's all actually the meaning depends on what we create with it, and we can create our own legend with it, and we can. It's like a dance, you know, and that's so beautiful. It's just this movement of life that is so for me graceful, and it goes to the core of something. And you can, when you go from something personal to something universal, you can touch hearts. And that is also what life as art for me is about. It's about, and that actually is also the new paradigm. It's on the heart frequency, you know, and the heart frequency, and this is actually related to the question of what is love. For me, recently, I actually discovered that it's the frequency of just boundlessness and expansion and openness, but also inner peace. So where we are in the old paradigm, really, I think more focused on the lower chakras of survival, of gratification, of emotional turbulence, and a lot of willpower, and doing it with will and force, you know. But persistence and determination is something very different from like forcing your way through. And I think in the new paradigm we are collectively, of course, moving more and more into the higher, well, levels of our being, I would say. And this is the heart frequency, and it's like when you connect to people on that level, it's very pure, you know, and you can also use a lot of creative energy in that way, because it's the frequency of listening, being receptive, being open-minded, be feeling care for how somebody else is feeling, and the courage to be intimate, you know, which I'm learning now more and more and more, what it means to really be intimate. And it has everything to do with I guess being okay with whatever shadow state you are in or the other is in, you know, and really holding the space for anybody else. And yeah, also in the terms of the question, then for me, what is love? I really feel, and this is what I learned it just yesterday. Love is really about, love just is, you know, and it's for me, it's about coming to a place where you don't need the other one to be with you, so you can love the other person and be like, I want the best for you, and I want you to be fully happy and do what is right for you, regardless of whether you are with me or without me, and I'm okay in that space because this is what I want for you, you know. And because I've come to a place of wholeness and self-love within inside of myself, to the extent that I'm able to say that. And also it's, and this is what we are talking about quite a lot here among the team as well. It's like, it's being in love, you know, but being in the it's not so much one person, but it's being in the vibration of love, which is like when you just look at the world with an open heart and a form of innocence. It's taking it all in with appreciation, and by appreciating it, you already vibrate care, and you already give nourishment back. And it's like, wow, being in love with all the beautiful reflections in your life, you know, and really feeling like, I love you, you know, I love you, and I love this, and I you know, and elated by this, you know, and I feel inspired by this, and it's sort of like this heart opening kind of expansion, you know. And there is no fear, there is no it's more like, you know, but yeah, it's beautiful. I feel that the infinite world game is an alternative to the actual structures that we're now living in, which I just was explaining, which are based on this paradigm of yeah, you gotta have achievements, and which, I mean, there is nothing bad about ambition when it comes from a healthy kind of place of wanting to excel and wanting to strive. But when it comes from a deeper place of, I am a nobody, or if my parents don't see what I'm doing, I won't receive their love, or if my CV doesn't look like this, who will I be? And I think that's the deepest kind of lie. Even though I also fully acknowledge that this paradigm that we are currently living in has, of course, generated a lot of prosperity in the material sense and technological progress. So that's the first thing I want to say. You know, I'm not just saying that it's all being useless, not at all. But the infinite world game that we are creating is a kind of 360 degrees opposite of what we're currently living. So it's based upon your essence. It's based upon knowing that each and everyone has a unique gift, and that everyone is endowed with that, and that's the purpose of us coming together. And even though I also acknowledge that it does require a lot of emotional healing and emotional consciousness to bring that forth, but when you have all this genius coming together and people feel the safety and the welcome to fully be themselves, and that it's not about you having to deliver something at a certain amount of time, but there is trust in the field that when you follow your purpose and you're committed to that, that you will naturally flow with the currents of the universe, and you will start manifesting and creating added value for people around you, and not just people, but actually all life on the planet, basically. And I think that is one of the kind of core, like, psychological It's related to our psyche. Innovations that the Infinite World game brings, next to, of course, that it's a whole systems platform. So everything that comes from that basis, so the economic model, the technological model, it's gonna represent the truth of about who we are, which is limitless. We live in this holographic universe, which it's like we are infinite beings, and we create our reality by almost envisioning the hologram, and seeing our power in that, and how there are currents in life, and how we work even, and that is the most, well, for me personally, the most important piece, because everyone in this field also sees the whole system from a different angle, or from their own specialty or passion. And I think I'm not seeing so much the whole system from a more kind of technical point of view, but I'm seeing the components really from a kind of energetic, vibrational point of view. So this is, for me, the fundament. And I think in this paradigm, we're so bogged down with matter and with believing that all of this is very real, you know? And it is, our experience is very real. Like me talking to you now and making contact with you now, it's very real. So there's nothing illusionary about that. It's more like this is not as fixed and as static and as kind of immobile as and solid as what it looks like. So what that means is that we are understanding now more and more the fabric of reality. And I feel that all of our systems, so whether the economy, whether it's technology, whether it's the social processes that we're involved in, have to reflect that deeper knowledge that that there are underlying energetic principles regarding order, positioning, flow, awareness, non-locality. So, and even sacred geometries that are there, vortex mathematics. Even though I'm not an expert on this, I am now realizing more and more, specifically interesting enough in this stage, there is a whole plethora of information and knowledge around this that already comes from ancient civilizations, basically, who were already working vibrationally, first and foremost. It's bringing us back to our true nature, and it also is extrasensory in the sense that we are fine-tuning our senses, we're fine-tuning our actual skills. Because now I see a lot of people running around and doing a lot of things and forcing things and being hectic and getting burnouts, and even though I'm also sure there are a lot of people in the old paradigm that actually enjoy their work and what they do and what they bring forth. So this is also something I want to acknowledge, but there is also another part to it which is very unsustainable, because we've forgotten really how even clairsentient we are. And what that means is that, well, for me everything is, they say it phenomenological. So it's like it's all just, the only reference point we have is our experience of reality. And when we really come into sacred space also, which is another thing, because this is what I feel the old paradigm lacks too, sacred space. And sacred space isn't per se having this ceremony with all kinds of attributes and difficult rituals. Sacred space is something very simple, you know, or for me at least, it can be something very simple. It's just taking the time and the space to connect to your inner being, and to come to a place where you don't have to do anything, you don't have to mentalize anything, you don't have to understand anything, you don't have to analyze anything. You come into a space where you are allowed to just be and let go emotionally and mentally. And while you expand in that space, also energetically, insights come to you, peacefulness comes to you, creativity comes to you, it's like emptying, 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 because our lives are so full of noise, and content and input, and there is
It's like distraction.
a distraction, and there is, of course, and even I have that too, I can fully acknowledge that. And especially when I was younger, you want to experience, you know, you want to go out and have adventures, and in a way I feel that that is also beautiful, because it's the kind of it's the young masculine part of ourselves that is adventurous, that wants to explore, that wants to extend its boundaries. So that's innovative. That's a great energy to have, but it can also lead you into consuming experiences, traveling, consuming this, consuming that. But actually, to be able to be empty and to come to stillness, and really to be in nothing. And from that place, we come back to innocence. And we listen. We actually are able to hear, you know, because I also learned that silence is really not the absence of sound, you know, it's a still mind, and to a still mind, the entire universe surrenders. And that knowledge, I feel like I'm going all over the place, but I feel that is what we're bringing back. And next to that, I think the Infinite World game is also focused on the energies or the frequencies of playfulness, of excitement, of innocence, of self-fulfillment, of self-expression, and sharing that with others, basically. I have a lot to say about it. I feel like all the kinds of stuff coming through. But yeah, I have a lot to say about it. So where to start? First of all, the thing you mentioned about Brett saying like we won't have schools, it's about experience. And I fully acknowledge that in terms of like, I've been to schools, I've been to university, but the things that really taught me about life and about how to be and about how to relate to other people and who I am, I didn't learn that at school at all. Like, at all, you know? Nothing of that sort. At all. I've done everything on my own, you know, in that sense. And while I was studying and doing my degrees and stuff, I went into a deep soul search when I was already quite young. And I just had to figure it out for myself. There was no support in the current educational system to ask these kinds of questions, even though I went to a school where it was about personal excellence and, you know, personal kind of fulfillment. But in the end, it was still very much focused on what are your grades, what are you doing for your professional excellence, you know, and I honestly feel when I look back at my life, I'm like, I learned more from living and from processing and from internally getting to know myself and having conversations with people, from meeting people, from living, from going through pain, from going through crisis, from going through shitloads, you know, and from healing myself. I've learned much more than I've ever had, that I could ever have learned in a degree. And in terms of education, I mean, I'm not sure if in the future we won't have schools anymore. That's I don't necessarily have such a clear opinion about that, but I do feel that true education is a total reconfiguration. Even though I'm not saying that it's not important to learn skills like reading or calculating stuff, but it's so focused on skills and it's so focused on the outside. And again, I'm speaking as usual about the inner world. Maybe it's because I'm sort of an INFP and I'm like an introvert and I focus on the internal a lot. But yeah, I really feel that that is kind of another lack that is so not present in the current educational system and that is not in balance. So I guess the first and foremost thing is also about bringing forth the innate gift and talent that is already in each and every kid. and rather than coming from an energy of you're nobody yet, but who do you want to become when you're older? You know, what do you want to do in society? It's more like every kid has a gift, is innately talented, and is innately free and open-minded. And why don't we bring that out more?
There you go. There's the root of the word. Educar is to like to draw out.
Okay.
Not to push in.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's also a lot about reproduction. So it's a lot about just reproducing knowledge from history books. And that's what you're graded for, you know? And I really feel sometimes like it's about people learning to find inner knowledge within themselves and assuring for kids that they have that intuition. Even though they're still young, reassuring them that they can trust themselves, that they have that wisdom already ingrained inside of themselves, and that as adults, it's their task also to bring that out. So also the skills that we're learning in terms of not just doing, but actually how do I relate to the other person? You know? How do I really work together with the other person? Already instilling in them a form of emotional intelligence. You know, like what does it mean to care for the other person? What does it mean to have relationships with other people? Because there is so much bullying at schools. There is so much you're popular, you're ugly, you're not popular. You know, and to see that also is part of human nature. But then I'm like, wow, if we can create a safe environment where kids can explore all their multiple intelligences, so not just their mental intelligence, but also the intelligence of their sentience, of their feeling intelligence, their spiritual intelligence. It's completely more holistic. And also on that, I think so many kids grow up in environments and homes where it's so unsafe to show their emotions or to be, even to feel anything. And then they go to school and it's the same story. So where do they go to learn that whatever it is that they're feeling, it's okay and it's safe for them to feel, and that there's a lot of wisdom in whatever it is that they're feeling? You know, so I really, really also think that true education addresses all of that. Yeah, one more brief thing I wanted to say about the education is, and this is related to when you were asking about who inspired you or which books did you like, and someone actually came to me. I haven't read so much from him, but Krishnamurti, when I was younger, he really touched me with some of his works. And he talks about the fresh mind, basically the empty mind. And I think that is such an important component of true education, how to be fresh each and every single day. And I'm still practicing with that myself, but not to have preconceptions, all kinds of judgments already going on before we even go out there into the world. And there is a wall between ourselves and between what we experience in the sensory world. So because we're so full with thought and judgments and preconceptions, and that is a tree, that is ugly, I don't like that. So there is a direct block between a very pure experience of just what is. And I think when we learn how to still and empty our mind and to really understand the nature of silence within, we will acquire world peace. I really do think that day there will be a form of world peace when people have come to that place. And this is why I guess meditation and all those things are so important. Because everything we see in the world is just a reflection of the turbulence and the disorder in our own psyche, in the mind that tries to control and tries to claim and grab and wants more, and it's everything we see in the world, it's just a reflection. And this is why the new paradigm is, of course, first and foremost about becoming conscious, self-reflective beings. First of all, I feel nature is not a thing. That first and foremost. When we ask a question like, what is nature? It almost signifies that it's a thing or an object, you know? But when I feel into it, I feel that nature is movement, just as life is movement. And this is why, okay, this is something else, but why dance is life for me. Because it's an expression of life itself. And I feel that nature is not a thing, you know? It's something that it's an experience and it's a movement. And I feel that, of course, we are nature ourselves. We think we are separate from that tree or from the ladybug there, but essentially we just have a different form. But all of our cells, and I think people know this, right? All of our cells, all of our blueprints, our makeup, the molecules, and even on like a quantum level, we are made out of the same, well, should I say stuff or the same space? So I feel when we sort of commodify it or put it outside of ourselves, and this is, I guess, the whole kind of political ecology perspective also of we commodify nature. Nature has become a natural resource, you know, and we extract it literally. But oh, and this is very important, I feel that why we extract so much out of nature and why we deplete it literally, I sort of intuitively feel that it's related to the lack of emotional nourishment we collectively have. It's almost as though it's a reflection of that. Because we don't know how to regenerate ourselves. If we're not tapped into the source of our own well-being, we gotta find it somewhere else. So either it's
to fill the void.
to fill the void. So either it's we take it from other people in relationships, or we extract it from the supposedly environment around us. And but because we don't know how to replenish, and even though I think maybe on a scientific level I fully acknowledge there are kind of major questions around, you know, energy resource management, water depletion, desertification, and actually I mean I actually studied environmental geography, so I know, you know, I know that there are huge sustainability issues, but I feel it on a deeper level. It's much more energetic and emotional, and it is related to us understanding how we replenish our own energy, source energy, basically, and not starting to abuse the things outside of ourselves, and come into a greater balance and harmony within ourselves, so that will be reflected in how we treat the part of ourselves that we call nature, but that's basically only just we're made out of the same. The makeup is the same, right? So even also when your consciousness is expanded, when you have those experiences, you also now it feels also separate, right? It's all static objects. But when your consciousness is expanded, you can feel how it's one movement, how it vibrates. When your consciousness is expanded, then you can feel how everything is a unity.
And a rhythm.
And a rhythm, indeed. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's great. It's a rhythm. Yeah, there's a rhythm to it, and there is kind of how would I say it? There's intelligence to it. You know, real intelligence, and that you're like, it's all whole, it's all unity, you know, it's all working together, and it is magnificent. And this is also another thing I really feel it's kind of, yeah, the remembrance. I think nature is also really there for us to remember our own divinity and our own magnificence and our own what we are as a human technology, you know, and how much intelligence there is to this being, to this form.
And magic, right?
Yes, yeah, and admiration, and indeed magic, and even when you think about like when you really think about plant medicines, and you realize, wow, Mother Earth grows these things, and well, things, she grows these awarenesses almost. And it's amazing that when you have an experience like that, you have a cosmic experience. And it's not just entertainment, you know? I really feel these things are there for us as a humanity to remember the grander picture, the grander perspective, and to know that in each and every leaf and in each and every cell of your being is the universe, the whole of the universe is contained in all of that. So it's like when you zoom in, you actually also zoom out. And when you when you have an experience like that, it's just like, wow, how is it possible that this reality grows these kinds of awarenesses? How is this even possible, you know? And why are these things even here? They must be here for us to awaken and to remember. Why would otherwise a leaf do that to our psyche? And to see also the kind of the reflection of the leaf with our psyche. So if it has that effect on us, it's like we must be intimately connected to that plant. You know, our psyche and the intelligence of that plant must be very intimately connected. We must be made out of the same makeup. In terms of veganism, I was vegetarian for a long time. But I actually feel, personally, this is my personal perspective, I actually feel this new paradigm is also about learning to listen to the body, and actually to heal the split between the body and the mind. And actually, it's interesting, I also noticed that I start speaking lower, because I tend to be quite high, you know, like I notice it in my voice even, that it's like quite up here. But when I start speaking about the body, I actually feel like, you know, I'm more in the body now even. And what I feel is, and this is, I feel, the wisdom that women are, well, specifically women, also men, but specifically women are bringing back. The cycles, basically, and to honor the body, because in this old paradigm, we are so used to the masculine driving force of production and achievement and individuation and deliverables. And I really feel that in this new paradigm, what we're bringing forth is, as women, to be like, hey guys, what about the body? You know, if the body needs rest, if the body needs inner space, when we listen to when it actually wants to surrender more, and to work creatively also with this awareness. Like I was just talking about the importance of honoring the body and listening to what it requires. Yeah, and I've actually learned myself that when these things come out of principle, I'm not so sure if that is what I personally fully resonate on. Because like I said, I do feel that this time, or this period of time, is really about us being even more aware of the intelligence of the body and how much it remembers and how much wisdom there is in there, you know, and even just to sit and feel who you are. So rather than out of principle cutting things out, I personally think it's about listening more. What is it that I really require right now? Do I need grounding foods? Do I feel like I want to eat something light? You know, and at a certain point, I mean, you have people believing that we can be breatharians or just live from sunlight. And I mean, I'm not I'm not saying that that's not possible at all. But I guess there is a reason why we eat food too, because there is a sensuality to it as well, which is very beautiful, I feel. And there is something, when I see someone really enjoying their food, I think there is beauty to that. Like if you overeat, that is something else, you know. But if you really enjoy your food and honor it, and honor just what it gives to you. I enjoy seeing that, you know, because it's life. It's a form of pleasure that is in the heart too. So yeah, and but of course, in terms of looking at how we especially treat animals, I mean, it can only say that at the least we all have to cut down our meat intake, if not just really stop eating meat. And in terms of like actually eating other living beings, well, first of all, I don't really see the difference between eating an animal or eating a plant, because it's all life, you know, it's all alive. And yeah.
It's tricky, isn't it? I don't know.
This is very tricky, because they do say that, and actually it's proven, scientifically proven, that plants have consciousness, and when you play classical music for them, they flourish, and that plants have memory and stuff. So
Sure, yeah, and then obviously what you were talking about a minute ago with the
exactly. There's huge consciousness to it, like immense consciousness, right? It's like totally switched on. I feel that what is also quite important about when you, it's not even so much about not eating meat as much as it is about when you actually, because we're talking about the slaughtering and the bio industry and everything, I feel like when you look at older indigenous tribes, or even just certain religions, where they honor really the spirit of the animal. And so they do take another life form. They do take a buffalo or whatever it is, but they honor, well, Mother Earth for it, and of course the spirit of the animal itself, and be like, thank you. Thank you for nourishing us. We do this with conscious awareness, you know, and we give back. And I think if we understand that that is a natural cycle of life, and that if we integrate eating meat into our lives in this way, and we see ourselves as part of that natural cycle, then and we pay gratitude to it, then I think then I'm not opposed to it. So in terms of that bio industry, that's just of course totally excessive. That, and I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, I feel it's so related to kind of, and Charles Eisenstein speaks about this in his book called Sacred Economics. He talks about, okay, why do people watch porn? Because there is so much lack of true intimacy and true emotional nourishment. Why do we need all this entertainment business? The millions go into the entertainment business. Why? Because probably our lives are not adventurous and fulfilling enough for us to feel alive. So we need entertainment. And equally, I think that counts for meat. You know, why do we need to eat meat in that excess? It's probably because on a deeper level we feel so undernourished, and we just gotta have that gratification. Because on other levels we don't feel strong. So we take other life forms to feel strong, and because it's, sometimes you have that like man are like, but I need to eat this meat in order to feel strong, you know, like otherwise my body is like can't handle it or something. So it's like, okay, so maybe there is something to look at in terms of where do you gain your strength from, because in the end it's probably a mindset. So, and next to that, I feel it's a pure reflection of how cut off we are. Because I think you can only work in that industry if you see those animals just as objects and also do not feel. Which says everything, of course, about how cut off we generally are of our own nature and of ourselves as animals. As conscious animals, perhaps. But who says that? I mean, when you look at dogs and the way they way they just are, and how they are in the moment, because animals are so in the moment generally. And even when you look at other species like cetaceans, like whales and dolphins, they are, I'm almost 100% for sure that these species are more connected and are actually vibrating at a higher rate. And they work with group harmonics, and they work with sound frequencies, and they are playful, and they know how to work with the sexual energy. I think these beings are in a way more advanced than we are. And there are probably other animals that are in other ways extremely, they are genius too. When a bird builds its nest, that is like wow, you know. That is there's intelligence to that. And I mean, now coming back to that conversation around nature, when you look at the intelligence of the design of each and every animal and how they live their lives, we have so much to learn from that. And I would say let's be humble about it too. So animals, yeah, even though I'm not per se so much around animals, except for like dogs and cats, of course, but you don't encounter so often like wild animals. Um, but with animals, it's yeah, I feel they embody certain energies that are very unique and very distinct to kind of the human form. And how I feel around them, well, dogs usually tend to open my heart a lot. And cats, I appreciate their elegance and their psychic abilities almost, you know, and the way they communicate with you when you are open to it and are present, you know, and the fact that you can actually without, I think what they show us is that we can communicate without words. We can communicate purely through our feelings and accessing the other being through observation, through listening to yourself and really feeling the other basically, and the energy of a being. And at the same time, I think, or I feel that animals, yeah, they inspire a form of archetypical energies as well, especially wild animals, but even just also animals that are close to human beings, like horses or dogs. Um, yeah, I feel it's possible that it sounds maybe no, it doesn't sound strange. I think if we connect to the inner dog inside of us or the inner horse, the qualities of what a horse, without anthropomorphizing it too much, you know, but I think they have archetypical energies in them. Like the wolf is the loner, but also a warrior, and a community species at the same time. And the whale, of course, so connected to Mother Earth and to the womb and to primordial energy. And I feel that we can, well, vibrationally, we can access those because the consciousness is there. The only thing we got to do is to open ourselves and to invite the whale or the dolphin or any other being into ourselves, and we can even communicate with it. And then finally, I recently had seen something in a dream about an octopus, and even just the octopus, how it relates to the bottom of the sea, how it relates to emotion and mystic qualities even. And yeah, I feel that a lot of animals are switched on other levels precisely because they don't have such a strong mental mind. And though they have language, it's not per se words as such, or syntax or grammar or whatever, you know. It's of course they communicate, but they communicate much more vibrationally, I feel, whether it's through sound, whether it's through scent, or yeah, even just through tentacles. So it's I think they're switched on very other levels of reality, other planes of existence. And this is also, I guess, the reason why animals intuitively know when danger is happening, and everybody just moves out because they intuitively sense already that something is coming. So I think there's a lot to learn from animals. Yeah.
Thank you for that last little bit, because
Yeah.
I always often I love animals a lot, and
Yeah.
to me they're probably like some of our greatest teachers.
Just,
you know,
yeah.
like, because precisely as what you said, they live in the moment, and that's what we need to
Mm-hmm.
to remember how to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind, I feel that, well, abundance is probably connected also to the, this is more a kind of intellectual framework, right? But yeah, I'll get to my point. So I feel it's deeply connected to the Taurus field. So the field of where you flow out, but rather than that you expend, it flows back to you, right? So everything you give is you receiving back in return, one form or the other, and it's a continuous flow of of well, you could say abundance, because you don't lose it, you know, and neither do you feel that you're giving something away and that you're then missing it. It's more like you give what you are able to give out of the fountain of who you are yourself. So now we live in this exchange kind of paradigm, which is I give you this and I lose that, and then you give me that in return. And I think real abundance is much more related to feeling that life is, and this is what I'm learning even in this team with the Infinite World game, and I'm not embodying it fully in that full trust yet, but that you are enough. First and foremost, you are as a human being and as a person enough, and that you are always provided for, because you are deserving, and because life wants to support you, and it wants for you to share infinitely as well, because you are also connected to that source. And when I feel that when we know how to reconnect time and again to that source within side of ourselves, so we know how to replenish ourselves, what to do to feel fulfilled, literally filled up, and to feel that we can give without expecting anything in return. And that for me, that is a state of freedom, and a state of that is out of fear. And and that's a true state of generosity. So it's absolutely connected to, you want to give not because you want to receive in return, you want to give because you want to give, right? And because you are able to give. And so, yeah, that for me would be abundance. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so there's one more question to go.
Yeah.
And it's,
And I guess trust in life too. Yeah.
trust in life.
Yeah, totally. If you can surrender and have self-assurance and trust, that is extremely abundant for me. You know, people who know how to live life from a place of trust, it's instead of from a place of contraction. I'm like, wow, that is very rich, you know. And there's one more thing in terms of abundance. I think it has to do with inner richness. Even though I'm not denying the importance of having your material needs or material needs met as well. At the same time, when you meet people who have a kind of inner richness, you know what these people are like, right? They have depth. They are connected to, in touch with themselves. They are connected to their feelings. They are warm-hearted. Then you know, like, oh, there is so much richness to this person. They have a magical story inside of them. They haven't lost their innocence, you know? They still look at the world with wonder. That for me is abundance. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of music, well, first of all, I must admit that I don't go that often to concerts. But I've been in concerts. This is just the basic thing, right? I've been in concerts that really que toco mi corazón, no? That touch my heart. And when I reflect on why that happened back then, what the element or the quality is, why it moved me. It literally, it's like it moves something inside of you, you know? What really moves me, and this is, I think, when people channel their music, well, it's like they channel a part of their being, right? So the music that comes through is the music of their being. And when they fully surrender into that moment and come into this almost trance-like state of like complete, almost you are moved by the harmonics and the rhythms of music itself, and you become the music. And this is similar to dance. I feel it's exactly the same with dance, when you become the dance. So it's not like I move anymore. It's not there is an I and there is a dance. It's no, I become the movement, and I translate what is in me, like an internal dynamics, I translate it into an external expression. And when you can hear or feel or see that external expression, you basically see inside of a being. And this is what I really love when concerts are really great, and you can just also see how somebody is so in it without embarrassment, without withholding, but being very vulnerable as well. And I feel that music is capable of, in that way, of uniting people, because it's another language. It's like where words do not sometimes surface or actually create more conflicts and misunderstanding. I feel that music can be a symphony or a glue that really that is universal, that is beyond any language, because it sort of goes beyond the mind. It works on all levels. It works vibrationally. It works with your emotions, and it does something to even just to for you to be able to listen deeply. And for me, even just some, I mean, I tend to like music that is kind of, well, let's say a little bit emotional in general. But why I like those pieces is also because there's so much feeling in it and so much expression in it, you know. And there is a kind of, you can feel the meaning of the words behind it, which is, or the meaning behind the words, which is much more energetic and much more emotional. And it sort of opens up this other world. It's like when you read a book or when you watch a film, you enter into this other realm or world, and you it's like another well, it's like well, I see reality as a kaleidoscope, right? So it's, you shift another lens, and it's a totally different kind of feel and mood and atmosphere. And so it's elevating, you know. And then next to that, in terms of sound, I feel like what you said also, in this new emerging consciousness, we're starting to realize much more that probably the word and sound initiates and comes before actual creation or actual matter. So this is also related to language, and I actually love words actually. I like writing too, but it's because it's almost as though words create another reality within and of themselves. And the cadence or the rhythm that is in there, you can convey a whole world behind it, right? So at the same time, where I'm like, music is beyond language, I also feel that at the same time, language can be very divine, because words contain a certain frequency, and they create our experience of reality, right? So if there exists something like white, then of course I have an experience of white. But if I have no conception of white, then how could I have an experience of white? So they create reality. So to understand that, so that with your words and how you invoke them literally, which is actually just a sound, because in the end words are also meaningless at the same time, you know. So there is a lot to it. They're also completely meaningless. They depend on the meaning that we collectively give them. but they have a frequency to it. When you utter it, it's literally like there is a vibration coming out of it, right? So, and I feel that that consciousness is very important. So that when we understand that also to speak rightly and deliberately and precisely, without being superfluous, and that is of course poetry, you know, spoken word. I really love spoken word, even though it's also sometimes very fast, because it's like yeah, it's a form of art, and it's yeah, you can convey a lot through speaking from your heart, through speaking rightfully and with awareness, and they are healing in and of themselves. So when you are connected in that way to whatever you utter, you know, and then in terms of sound. Yeah, I guess we are rediscovering. We are really rediscovering how, even within our DNA, how we can actually holographically enter our DNA, and that it works through the frequencies of light and the frequencies of sound. And that is, so we can think we just do a material surgery or operation or something, but this is mostly we just work with matter, and we work from matter with matter. But I guess what we're now in this new paradigm also, which is related to the activation of the 12th DNA string, I feel, and the crystallization of our DNA, when we realize, because sound and both light are vibrating on such another level, we can access, well, all kinds of planes of existence, and even our own etheric being, by tuning into those frequencies. And I feel that we are kind of rediscovering, yeah, the benefit of that, and how we can heal through that and activate and invoke, and change water, change our DNA, change our food with it. And then there's one final thing I want to say about sound, and that is more related to our inner being, I guess. And that is mostly related to finding your own voice in the world, you know, and really stepping it up as someone, as a leader, you know, but not to lead others, but how to lead yourself, and thus be a role model for whoever, you know. And I feel like this is all about the voice liberation is very important, I feel, because so often I even recognize it in myself. I withhold, I don't speak up. So the liberation of the throat, I feel, is massive, is very massive, that we feel that we can, because so often it's like, don't be too loud, don't scream, it's bad, you know, don't actually basically just suppress your anger. And I'm like, wow, if we, it's all the suppression of our unique vibration and our unique voice in the world. And I feel that when we can allow ourselves to be heard, literally to be heard again, yeah, I feel that we're finding a unique expression of ourselves that otherwise is lost. And that when we learn to connect it to the love that is in the heart, so to connect the actual sound frequencies that come out of me and the wavelengths that come out of me, if I learn to connect that to the wisdom and the love of the heart, then it's a form of poetry, and it can be prophetic. Yeah. So
Thank you for that, and the authenticity of which you speak, with which you speak, not of which you speak.
Yeah. 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 Thanks. Yeah.
So, yeah. No, and that's pretty much everything.
Oh, that's everything. Okay,
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
awesome.
So if I can just have a hug, that'd
Yes.
be great.
Can I see one bit? Just the last bit? I just want to
Yeah,
see just
of course.
just like 1 minute or so. Thanks so much.
Thank you.